Today we furthered our learning on the real number system and discussed what some examples of numbers were that fit into a specific subset, but then also began to give what are called non-examples of numbers that wouldn't fit into a subset. So we can start to distinguish what is and what is not rational or irrational or an integer or a whole to help us further understand the diagram. So we're going to be working on page 5. We've already completed the odds 1 through 9, and we were given numbers. Sometimes we had to find the value of the numbers. So, for example, we had to find the value of the square root of 36. So I'm going to come over and look at number 2. Number 2 says I need to find the square root of 1. And the square root of 1 is 1. Remember, if you're using the calculator on your phone, turn it sideways and it gives you more options. You'll see the square root button there. So then I have to figure out, well, where would a 1 go? Please feel free to flip back into your interactive notebook on page 2 and use your diagram. I went ahead and drew a diagram here, and I'm going to, since this is going to be on YouTube, the whole world's going to see what a terrible artist I am, but you kind of get the idea. So if I'm looking at my diagram here, I know that I can count to 1, and so the counting numbers are natural. And on your page 2, it's also got the definition of those with more examples, so that'll be a little bit easier for you. So I would put a 1 in the natural category. Remember, you got to get in, and then once you're in, you got to get out. So if you're a natural, then you get out to whole, then you get out to integer, then you get out to rational, and then you're real. So you're all the categories on the left-hand side there. So the only category that 1 can't be in is irrational. It is not irrational. 1 is not an example of an irrational number. It's a good non-example. All right, so now we've got negative 3/8. Well, it is negative, however, it is a fraction, and if I divided negative 3/8 out, I would get negative 0.375. Well, that's a terminating decimal. So I know that terminating decimals go right here in the rational category. They're not irrational. Irrational are long, mixed-up decimals like pi. Rationals are nice, clean little decimals or repeating decimals. So if I'm rational, then I'm also real. Now remember, here's the rule. Once you're in the category, so there's negative 3/8, it's in rational, then I can't get in any further. That's as far as I can go. These are locked doors. I can only get out. So if I'm rational, then I'm real. But I cannot be an integer, whole, natural, or of course that old separate irrational category. So negative 3/8 would be considered a non-example of an integer. It's not an integer. It's not a whole number. It's not a natural number. And it's not irrational. Okay, number 6. And if you're noticing, take a look back. We're doing some parallel homework here, so it gives you a good idea of what the solutions are going to be. So we've got the negative square root of 9. So remember, we take the square root first. So you type in 9, take the square root of that. You might have it memorized. It's a perfect square. That will give you 3. And then that negative stays on the outside. So the value of the negative square root of 9 is negative 3. So where would I put negative 3? A lot of you know that negative 3 would go right here in the integer category. So remember, once you're in, then you got to get out. So you're an integer, you're rational, and you're real. But once you're plopped down in that integer category, that's as far as you can go. So you are locked out of whole, you're not natural, and you're not irrational. Those are non-examples. So the negative square root of 9 is a non-example of whole. It's not a whole. It's not natural. It's not irrational. Okay, number 8, we've got 0. Oh, well, look at number 7. That's also 0. Remember, 0 is a whole number. So if it's whole, then we're getting out. We got to get out to integer, rational, and real, which means it is not a natural number. 0 is a non-example of natural, and it's a non-example of irrational. It's not irrational. And then number 10 is pi. Oh, pi is the popular example. A lot of us have that one memorized already as well. We know pi is irrational. So if it's over here in irrational, it can only get out to real. And then we probably noticed that it is not in any of the other categories. So it's real, and it's an example of irrational, but it's a non-example of rational. It is not an integer. It's not whole, and it's not natural.